Facebook chief executive Mark Zuckerberg faces tough questions today at the European Parliament on how the data of millions of Facebook users ended up in the hands of a political consultancy firm. The meeting comes 3 days before tough new European Union rules on data protection take effect. Facebook has come under scrutiny from politicians on both sides of the Atlantic after it emerged that Cambridge Analytica, a British political consultancy firm that worked on US President Donald Trump's campaign, improperly acquired the data of 87 million users, including up to 2.7 million from the EU. And for a bit more on this, we crossed our correspondent in Brussels, Jack Parrick. Jack, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. A scandal that's almost had a snowball effect with more and more coming out and making Zuckerberg and Facebook look rather silly. That's putting it mildly. But take us through what we can expect from this session at Parliament.
Well, the first thing we're going to expect from Mark Zuckerberg is further apologies. It's been proven over the last few years that he's pretty good at coming out with apologies when Facebook has been found to be in the wrong, and it's especially with this data breach. Now, it was only announced on Friday last week that Mark Zuckerberg would come here to Brussels and face questions. And initially, we weren't going to hear it was going to be a closed-door meeting, but he has now agreed that there will be a live streaming. And that as well won't only be a test of him, but it'll be a test of the European politicians that are grilling him. It's basically the leaders of the political groups within the European Parliament that will be speaking to him. And you'll remember there was a lot of criticism when there was a congressional hearing in the United States of the type of questions that the politicians were putting to him. And many people in the public, and especially in sort of tech and data spheres, felt that they didn't grill him hard enough and that they weren't hot enough on the subject to really put him under the pressure that they felt he deserved. So here in Europe, they're hoping that there will be able to be a real sort of grilling of this Facebook CEO while he's here in Brussels.
And MEPs will certainly, from what I understand, want to know if the data was used for changing people's opinions or their positions, including that shock Brexit decision of 2016. So that goes further back than the position of the United States voting in President Donald Trump.
It does indeed, and I think that's something that really has been the sort of question on everyone's lips here, and we'll have to wait and see how far these political leaders take Mark Zuckerberg on this. They want to know how much money was spent on political campaigning, how much of it came from directly from political parties, and how does Facebook deal with that sort of money and the sort of advertising in the political sphere? How much is Facebook affecting these big votes that we've seen, both the election of Donald Trump and the Brexit vote? That's something he'll be pushed on, but also there'll be questions about the GDPR. When he held that congressional hearing, when he was spoken to there, a photographer from the Associated Press took a picture of his notes which said basically that Facebook is not ready yet for this so-called GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation here in Europe, which is coming in on Friday, a sweeping set of data protection regulations that all businesses, basically anyone who handles data, is going to have to come under. And so they're going to grill him on the readiness of Facebook for that law coming in on Friday.
All right, tell us a bit about these new strict data policy rules, as you say, that law coming in on Friday, and could they potentially go further to cover other large tech companies? I'm thinking Google, Twitter, other sort of personal advertising data sites. Could the laws cover all of those?
The GDPR covers absolutely everyone who deals with any sort of data, and basically what it means is that everybody, consumers, customers, people that use any kind of service, have the right to know what their data is being used for, where it's being shared, where it's being put. It's a very in-depth regulation. And I think around the world, basically anyone who handles data in Europe must abide by this regulation. And around the world, here in Europe, we've been receiving multiple emails from all the companies that would send us an email, you know, an advertising email, an update of their service, saying, will you update your preferences to opt into this sharing of data? And I think one of the big issues with the GDPR, and especially when it comes to Facebook as well, is regarding things like people's preferences, who they are, their religious beliefs, their sexual orientation, their gender even, and different aspects of this that Facebook uses to advertise, and how Facebook will deal with those pieces of information once the GDPR comes in. That is a question we're expecting the European politicians to put to Mark Zuckerberg at this hearing. It will be very interesting to hear what he has to say on the GDPR, because Facebook handles so many people's data, obviously, so many people having Facebook profiles around the world.
Absolutely, Jack. Thank you very much for that. We'll leave it there. Our Jack Parrick live for us from Brussels.